So I was genuinely surprised how much there was to actually talk about with facility, as this is a very technically complete level. But here we are. I do also want to go ahead and talk to you guys again. I'm not exactly sure what I should talk about today, though. So I think I'm going to talk about self-worth. And I know I'm still probably not the best person, but I want to let you know that your self-worth is not how much money you make. Your self-worth is not, how clean the house is, anything like that. Those things don't define you. Yes, you might consider those things important, but those things are not who you are. Those things don't make you more or less of a human being because of it, and those things shouldn't wholly dictate your life. And I've seen people that have let that happen, that have let the aspects of their lives define them, and they can't be happy unless everything is going right for them, because they see themselves as a failure because they're struggling, and that's no way to live your life. So if those things are burdening you, just know that they are not you, and you can rise above those aspects of life that you feel define you and find your own self-worth. With that said, let's jump right into the video. Of course, once you begin the level, you'll spawn inside the vents and follow the path towards the left until you drop into the bathroom. There isn't much to say about these restroom guards, though, as they are entirely avoidable. Although they do have a chance to throw grenades, which unfortunately all of the guards on this level have a very low chance of doing so. And as you may see here, I do have some very nice little tools, courtesy the Goldeneye setup editor, which of course segues us back to the previous level, in which I did find the information as far as the grenade chances go, of which, if you see here, for whatever reason, the grenade probability is listed as an object in the editor. This is extra interesting because if we take a look at the grenade probability for dam in comparison to facility, there is no object for it, which effectively means that it's less that the guards were programmed not to throw grenades, so much as they were never given the ability to do so in the first place. Which, even though the information was actually relayed to me from a member of the Goldeneye speedrunning community, I wasn't entirely satisfied with a simple answer, and so I went digging. I will go back in the next episode and revisit Dam with the new tools, as I suspect Runway to be a very short episode, and it would only make sense for me to try to balance the episode length. For now, we'll go down the stairs, and pretty much every single guard in this area follows the same strict path. There are a few exceptions, most notably being the guard that comes through the double doors on the left, which in my original Slappers Only run, I go ahead and take him out first and then proceed to ambush the others. There is this guard here that in the editor is inside the vent, funny enough, although in actual gameplay that vent isn't there, and I found it easiest to just lure him away so that way I could ambush the guard in the next room with the keycard. Of course, in the next room with the computer terminal, there are 3 guards that you do have to be careful of, but as long as you use your doors, you can take them out pretty easily. I do want to briefly talk about the guard that burst out of the rest of the facility, as funny enough, he spawns all the way over here by Trevelyan. I would assume that from a lore standpoint, he is intended to have seen Trevelyan and ran off without telling anybody, but that's purely speculation. I also want to talk about Dr. Doak, as I find it very interesting that he's programmed not to spawn until you reach a specific pad, which you may notice is the same pad that the bursting guard runs to, in this case number 000B, to which the game calls a random number and positions him according to the value that comes out. I won't show the full list of locations, as that would eat up way too much time and only serve to pad out this video. I also want to briefly cover the fact that Doke is killable after you get the decoder, which I kind of find slightly entertaining, as you can do some goofy things with that if you really wanted to. Otherwise, as soon as he gives you the decoder, the game automatically flags the objective contact double agent complete regardless of difficulty, which is very unusual, as the game does check for difficulty when determining whether he has been killed in the first place. I do also want to talk about the guards that end up spawning behind you once you reach the locker room, as these guards are triggered to spawn as soon as you are seen by the 2 guards in the locker room area. Of course, in a slapper's run, this would be unavoidable, as you would have to end up passing them anyway. But in my run here, I do play around with the idea of trying to take these guards out without being seen, in hopes that the guards behind you don't spawn. As well, these guards can be entirely avoided by simply getting past the pad in which they are protecting, in this case 003F. The 3 guards in the following hallway are all programmed to walk directly at you as you enter the next hallway. I do want to briefly talk about this scientist right here, labeled number 42, who is programmed to follow the path walking to the room across the hallway from where he begins, who may be the most cowardly scientist on this map, as he's programmed to immediately surrender and run away on sight. Although, like any other scientist on this map, he will attack you if you attack him. As we enter the next hallway, I will have us briefly go into the right set of doors though, as one of the biggest mysteries in the community within the last couple years actually involves these gas canisters here. And while I can't find anything in the coding that would support any reason why the gas canisters would go off on their own, I do actually have a slight theory regarding that, as there is some overlap between a handful of these canisters and they do have collision. And the only thing I can assume is that for whatever reason, the canisters were just enough that it essentially launched one of the canisters away, causing it to take damage and be destroyed, causing it to activate the gas leak. Otherwise, the only thing the coding actually checks for is the condition of said items and whether or not they have been destroyed. Returning back into the previous hallway and onwards to the left, once you go upstairs, there will be a number of other guards on patrol, and as long as you make your way kind of steadily, you should be fine. Of course, as many in the community could probably tell you, you will have to find Dr. Doke on higher difficulties. If I recall, each position has about a 14% chance, roughly, of having Dr. Doke appear. So thankfully, he should be along your natural path. Of course, as we enter the final area, there are the 2 guards to the left who can be lured to open the door for you into the area if you don't have the actual decoder, or if you're trying to save time. There are some very liminal spaces here, which is very interesting because this map doesn't really have a lot of them up until this point. In the door on the far side of the room, there are 2 more guards. And of course, there are also some fun instances with Trevelyan towards the end of the level here, such as the game does have a special dialogue if you enter the same room as pad 0063 here as well. Even though you're unlikely to actually see it in normal gameplay, you can taunt Trevelyan, especially with invincibility on, as you see here, in which Trevelyan has special dialogue if you manage to survive 15 seconds without him killing you. This is actually the point where my upcoming rules will most differ from the initial gameplay, and partly why I say it should be its own category, because these canisters, of course, can be destroyed with grenades or really any explosion. And unfortunately for my upcoming run, there is a slight snag, as by my rules, I won't be able to destroy the gas canisters myself, and thus I will have to rely on grenade throws. And guards in this level have an extremely low chance to actually throw grenades, but it should be noted, as you see here, that scientists have a notably larger chance of throwing grenades. Roughly a 24-25% chance compared to the guards, which have about a 2% chance. It is also very likely that I'll have to lure two separate scientists, as getting one to throw both grenades in that timely manner would be a lot more difficult. It should also be noted that all the scientists in the previous area turn into guards once the scene with Oramov starts. That also raises more issues, as I will have to lure a scientist from earlier in the level all the way to the gas canister room, as well as use the decoder on the door, which takes a few seconds, without being gunned down by their DD-44s, or having them throw a grenade prematurely, which is a lot harder than it sounds. And I will have to get both grenade throws in a very timely manner, possibly within seconds, and accurately to boot, while also not killing Trevelyan accidentally in the explosion. That said, as you can see here, by this failed attempt, there is a lot that needs to happen in order to make for a successful run. And unfortunately, Trevelyan is just as much of a liability as he is a blessing. Of course, assuming everything goes well, that does mean that you can just hop straight to the end through the double doors. As well, the developers of Rare have even gone so far as to, when you finish the level, the game checks a very massive list as what weapon you have currently equipped and draws that out. Of course, not every weapon is on this list, and you can even show up unarmed, although I did not have space enough to show that. I do believe that this is the entire list otherwise. With that all said, I hope you enjoyed today's video. As I mentioned earlier, I do plan on revisiting Dam in the next episode when I cover Runway, as it is one of the shortest, if not the shortest level in the game. And while I do have some things to talk about it, I feel like there's just enough content in that level to barely make a short, as well a full video. I have not recorded any of the video, nor done any of the audio, so that may change, but we'll see when that comes around. And until then, I hope you have a fantastic evening. Bye-bye.